The housing market here in the Bay Area is probably not going to change very much in 2025 compared to last year. I know that's a little bit of a womp moment, but it's just the reality of things. Today, I want to get into the good, the bad, and the ugly of the mortgage and real estate market and help everyone understand why the bad and ugly parts of this market are actually going to be what's good for you. The first thing that we need to do is dive into how we got to this point in terms of having a market that is so gridlocked in terms of no inventory or available places for people to actually buy, interest rates being at elevated levels and not really showing many signs of coming down in the foreseeable future, and also why San Francisco is still recovering a bit when it pertains to housing from the COVID blowout. But before we get into all those specifics, I want to ask a huge favor from you. It would mean the world if you liked this video and also subscribe to our channel so that we can reach more people like you with content and information and data that impacts people's buying decisions when it comes to owning real estate in the Bay Area. My name is Arjun Dingra. I have been in the mortgage industry for quite a while, 24 years to be exact, and I'm really passionate about helping people make smarter decisions around taking out mortgage debt. I live in Marin County with my family, but work right here in San Francisco and have helped thousands of people restructure their debt or finally find their home that they want to live in. And if I can ever be of help to you, please reach out to me so that my team and I can assist you in any phase of this journey by reaching me on Instagram at Arjun Mortgage. So thanks in advance for subscribing to my channel. Now let's get into today's video. So the good, the bad, and the ugly are what this video is all about. But before that, again, I want to make sure that we touch on what got us to this point. So let's go back to COVID. You had a lot of people leave, not just San Francisco, but most urban areas because they wanted more space or they were unsure of what their city was going to be like during this pandemic. It was just a very uncertain time. Now, San Francisco specifically saw a mass exodus from people living downtown. This was for a few reasons. Every business downtown was completely shut. The way of life went from being very exciting to basically dead. And the whole benefit of living downtown was so that you could kind of walk to work and enjoy life in and around your area and never need a car. Well, all of that was gone because everyone was forced to work at home, as we all know. So being stuck in a high-rise building with a lot of other anxious people and trying to work from there, especially if you lived with someone else or had roommates, grew to be very undesirable. And so a lot of people left. They gave notice and left their rental unit or decided to put their unit, if they owned it, on the market to sell. This caused condo prices, particularly in the downtown market, to really start to fall. And to this day, people can get a screaming deal on a condo at 20 or 30% or off of what the true market value was. So you had this happening in terms of migration paths. The enclaves or specific neighborhoods of San Francisco experienced a little bit of this as well, where people left condos or apartments and got out to the suburbs where they could have more room because they needed a home office, they wanted to have a home gym, or just space in general for their families. Single family residences pretty much held on because if you owned a home, that meant you had a little bit extra space, likely a yard, a garage. And so they kind of adapted and made better use of the space that they were living in. Now, what was going on with the mortgage market was even more interesting during that time because the Federal Reserve was artificially keeping mortgage rates extremely low. Now, they did this for a few reasons. One, it was the best of intentions, of course, because they were so uncertain, as was everyone, because of this kind of once-in-a-lifetime black swan event with this pandemic. What's going to happen with the economy? What's going to happen with the labor markets? And they recognized that housing as a particular sector of the economy has so many ripple effects throughout the broader economy. And if we can keep people moving, if we can keep that space fluid, if we can keep interest rates very attractive for people to borrow and be able to move, buy, sell, it's going to have a widespread impact to the overall economy. Think about it. When people move, it's not just a transaction between a buyer and a seller. There's a real estate agent involved who makes money. There's a title company involved who makes money. There are inspectors and appraisers who make money. There are general contractors that have to sometimes come in and start to do some work. When you move, you need more furniture, so you go out and spend money. So retail sales will pick up. You'll hire people to do work on your home. You also, by way of leaving a house, created another piece of inventory for the marketplace so that somebody else could buy and the cycle would repeat for them, so on and so forth. So real estate has huge broad impacts on the overall economy. And the Fed was completely aware of this and knew that if anything, even if the rest of the economy went to hell in a basket, that housing on its own would be able to really keep things propped up and eventually give us a pathway forward. Well, it turns out the rest of the economy did not go into the crapper and housing did very well. But what that did ultimately end up creating was what we now have as an inventory crisis. There's not enough room in San Francisco to continue to build homes. The only way you can build here is vertically. So any sale that's going to happen is only going to come by way of somebody leaving their home and putting it on the market. Now, yes, there have been some high rises and other other condo development projects that have come to the market, but not nearly enough to keep up with demand. So you have an exodus out of the city, which has created a little bit more inventory in the rental markets, bringing rental rates down. You have mortgage rates being artificially low, which are stimulating all kinds of activity of either refinances or people wanting to buy because money was so cheap. And then to add to all of this, you had a little bit of hysteria with some prognosticators or just YouTube sensationalists that were telling people the market was going to crash as a result of COVID. Turns out none of that came to fruition or was true, and the market, if anything, got further and further away from people. So that's how we got to the point that we're at, and we're still very much in that space as it pertains to inventory and buyer sentiment. So here's where we are now, and this is the good, the bad, and the ugly. First, let's start with the ugly. And what's ugly about this market right now is going to be the continued presence of the media painting not so positive pictures about housing in general. The talk is about how rising rates or elevated mortgage rates are obviously leading to a lot of buyer trepidation, which they are. But this doom and gloom has a contagion effect, and it can impact a lot of other buyers or people that are speculating about whether or not to get into the marketplace. You also have inventory levels kind of being misrepresented in terms of what is really the real story. For example, over the last year, you saw some articles coming out talking about this huge triple-digit percentage increase in foreclosure activity. Now, when people hear this, they instantly get triggered and go back to 2008 and think there's a foreclosure crisis coming, which means my property is either going to devalue, or if I'm a buyer, I'm going to get a house at $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 off the price. Here's the math, guys, and here's how I burst that particular bubble. When you start at zero, which there were basically zero foreclosures going on, especially during the pandemic, and now you have one, what kind of percentage increase is it? That's 100%. But if I told you there's 100% increases going on in foreclosure activity, that sounds quite shocking. But when we peel back and say we went from 0 to 1, it's a bit of a nothing burger. That type of data is going to constantly be out there, especially with listing data, how long homes are staying on the market, or the uptick in new listings that are in the marketplace. Recently, an article was put out by CNBC talking about a 14% increase in inventory. But this was coming off of a historic low and is still 30+% off of pre-pandemic levels. So it's really not a crisis at all. But again, if you read the headline, you'd be led to believe that a flood of inventory is about to hit the market, which means prices are going to get depressed. Not the case. If anything, prices have continued to climb in just about every single major market in the United States, but absolutely right here in San Francisco. The only soft part of the market has been the condo market, and that presents amazing opportunities. So let's get to the bad. The bad news is that mortgage rates are not really going to move one direction or the other. If anything, they might get a little bit worse before they get better. The reason for that is because now with a new administration and a little bit of uncertainty as to which direction the markets will ultimately go, there could be a little bit more stubborn inflation. And as we all know, inflation and mortgage rates are not really good friends. They go the exact same direction. They tag along. So if inflation ends up remaining a little bit stubborn or even picks up just a tad bit during certain periods of time, we're going to see mortgage rates elevate. Eventually, it will all cool off. And we've been saying that for a while. It's just taking a lot longer to get there. So yes, we'll have lower mortgage rates, but I don't think that's going to be any time in the year 2025. I think the rates that we have right now are what we are meant to be dealing with. Yes, they might kind of go up and down here and there, but by and large, this level of seeing things with a 6 in front of it or even a 7 are what we need to remain used to. The second element that's also bad for this market, or challenging in a way, on top of the fact that mortgage rates are going to be elevated for the better part of this year, is the inventory lock that we have, meaning people who are in homes but maybe want to move but likely won't because of the mortgage rate that they have. Now, this is a real phenomena that's happening, and in San Francisco, it's very apparent. You have people that are living in expensive homes with a lot of equity in them attached to extremely low interest rates. Remember those rates I was talking about that the Fed artificially got so low? Well, they almost became a little bit of a sentence or put people in mortgage jail because they're basically imprisoned in their own homes now. They can't give up the rate that they have in exchange for a much, much higher market rate for a home price that's also higher, because home prices never came down when mortgage rates went up, as they historically do. So this type of gridlock has really been the main catalyst, or the main culprit as to why we're just not seeing inventory free up, because San Francisco's market, inventory-wise, moves very differently than other markets. Other markets, again, because they aren't limited by a 7x7 grid that the city falls within, can ultimately sprawl out and build and create more inventory, even acquiring federal land and putting homes on it, which we're going to see a lot of here this year. But San Francisco is limited by their space, so the only time inventory gets created is if somebody decides to sell their home. And if no one's going to sell their home because they're locked into an unbelievably good interest rate that they just refuse to give up, then you've got a problem. Now, the good news or the crack in that data that I just shared with you is that more and more people are just getting used to the fact that these are where rates are at. So they're almost thinking of the really low rate that they have on their home as a bit of a souvenir or something that they can claim that they once had one of those historically low rates. Because the reality is, guys, we're never going to have rates that low. And finally, just saying, you know what? We've outgrown this house. It doesn't matter what our rate is or how good our payment is or how cheap we've got it. We have to move. Or my job is requiring me to move, or we're not going to be living in San Francisco anymore because I lost my job, which means we've got to leave the city. Whatever it is, people are just going to eventually get off the fence and do something and not be held back by that low rate. But last year was really crippling for this market from an inventory standpoint, in large part because of this. So if we have the ugly and we have the bad, what could possibly be good about this market? Well, it's because of the ugly and the bad that actually gives you something good, and that is the opportunity that it presents. Because you have such tight inventory and you have a negative media and you have elevated mortgage rates, it's continuing to give home buyers an amazing leverage point of being able to negotiate. Now, negotiations could not even take place during the COVID market, which is why you had people lined up around the block and paying obscene amounts of money over asking price, sometimes without even seeing the house, because sellers weren't even in the picture. They were already on a yacht somewhere or on a plane traveling somewhere where no masks were being enforced, and saying, ha ha ha, just bring me your most ridiculous and obnoxious offer and throw in your firstborn if you have to, and maybe we'll consider the offer. Now the tables have turned. If anything, it's actually a table with two seats where a buyer and seller have to sit at it and they have to negotiate. So the best deals that we have seen at our bank written over the last year have been because we've had higher rates and really gridlocked inventory and a confused public because of a media narrative that's being painted. So this won't change in 2025. If anything, the best deals are going to come out of this market. And you have to remember, an interest rate is nothing more than a placeholder. For a long time, consumer behavior has had it ingrained that the rate you get and the mortgage product you get is something that you are going to be stuck with forever. So you've got to get it right. You've got to nail it. You've got to get the best one right out of the gates. Now what people have to understand, and many people are starting to wake up to this, it's nothing more than a placeholder, because the average person doesn't keep a mortgage for that long. In fact, every 3 to 5 years, opportunities to restructure the debt actually comes about, sometimes even quicker. And many people move on from their home within 5 to 7 years. So your opportunity as a buyer, eventually after getting a home, to restructure your debt and lower your mortgage payment is going to be there. But what these higher rates give you are a placeholder to be able to get into a home, but get in at a much better bargain. Now, the bargains that I'm talking about are either a reduced price, just like the condo market presents here in San Francisco, negotiating some type of a concession from the seller to either pay for the majority of your closing costs, which is real dollars saved, or actually taking that money to buy down your interest rate and make your mortgage payment cheaper. And in a lot of cases, especially here in San Francisco, where we have inventory that's a little bit aged, and it's got a lot of character, but it's in need of some repair or upgrade. Getting credits for those upgrades is, again, real dollars being saved and getting the seller to pay for it for you. So above all, the good that is part of this market is the opportunity that it's being presented because of the bad and the ugly. But here's the other thing about San Francisco and what makes it a very unique market. We've talked in previous YouTube videos on this channel, and you may have seen them, but if not, please make sure to check them out, about the huge AI investment in San Francisco. A lot of the existing empty office space that's here has been absorbed by AI companies, particularly OpenAI and Anthropic, as well as a host of other startups that are all popping up here every month in San Francisco. So with that is bringing back not just optimism, but real jobs. There's been a massive tech investment just in general into this city, and with a new mayor, new administration, and a lot of new local government officials that are all very committed to turning around and changing the narrative of San Francisco by implementing real systemic change to clean up the city, make it more appealing, and reinvigorate its tourism, are all really good signs that not only is this going to be a revived city at some point in the very near future, but a housing market that's going to remain very strong and secure. Because again, we're limited by 7 square miles here, which means we can't really build out. So the idea or the dangers of urban sprawl just don't exist here. We can only build vertically, but that doesn't happen quickly here because of a very lengthy and over-encumbered permitting process. Plus, it's not exactly cheap to build anything these days. So that's been a bit paused. So anyone who owns any anything in San Francisco, any portion of land or four walls within a building in the form of a condo is doing well and will continue to do well in the long run. And for those that can find a way to creatively break into it, even though it's difficult, but still the opportunities remain, you're going to be setting yourself up for tremendous financial success in the long run. Owning any part of San Francisco in any capacity is always a good long-term investment. So of course, I'm bullish on this market, not just because I believe in it and I live in it and work in it, but because I understand the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the opportunities that are presented from it. I hope you found this video helpful. And again, if anyone from my team can be helpful and assist you in your home search, or if you're thinking about investing in this market, please reach out to us again on Instagram at Arjun Mortgage. Again, I hope you were able to learn something here from the good, the bad, and the ugly of the San Francisco housing and mortgage market here in 2025. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next video.